Before we can manage anything in SCCM, we need to add those resources into the site database, and that's where discovery methods come into play. So in this hands-on lab nugget, we're going to walk through the process of loading up our site database with everything in Active Directory. We're talking about forests, domains, sites, users, groups, and computers. When your lab finishes loading, you'll be planted on SCCM Nug, which is where we're going to begin our journey for this lab. Also notice that Configuration Manager is launched and minimized down here in the taskbar, so let's go ahead and bring that up. From here, we're going to head down to Administration, Expand Hierarchy Configuration, and there it is. The first option there contains all of our discovery methods. We have 6 of them in here by default, with only one being enabled, Heartbeat Discovery. We'll talk about these special discoveries down at the bottom here in a little bit. Let's start by focusing here on our Active Directory discovery methods, which we have 4 of them. Forest Discovery allows us to pull in our forests, domains, sites, and subnets. Group Discovery, as the name implies, allows us to pull in Active Directory groups and group membership. System Discovery allows us to pull in computers, and User Discovery is for users. So you can think of these as automated import processes to pull all of that information from the Active Directory database here into our site database. Now, before we go any further, let's take a quick peek at our Active Directory infrastructure. So we'll head over here to DCNUG, where we have some tools launched and ready to go in the taskbar. First up here, we'll launch Active Directory Sites and Services. Notice here that I've included the 3 subnets that we looked at and configured as boundaries in our previous nugget. We also have 3 sites, HQ, Branch Office 1, and Branch Office 2. So HQ is tied to the .1 subnet, BO1 the .2, and BO2 the .3. So keep this structure in the back of your mind, as this is what the Active Directory Forest Discovery method will pull into the SCCM site database. We also have Active Directory users and computers ready to go down here. If we bring this up, you'll notice that we have a production OU. Within, we've got a servers OU containing both of our servers, FileNug and SCCM Nug, and we've got a workstations OU containing both of our client desktops here, Client 1 and Client 2 Nug. Also, you'll notice we have a Star Wars OU. That's right, we've got a fully loaded Star Wars Active Directory database containing groups and plenty of users to work with. And all of these users belong to one of these groups. So we've got a fully loaded Active Directory database to work with throughout the course. And this is what the Active Directory user and group discovery methods will pull in. And the system discovery method we will use to pull in our servers and our workstations and also our domain controllers. So let's head back over to SCCM Nug and get the ball rolling here with these discovery methods. We'll start with Forest Discovery. We'll go ahead and give this a double click to launch into the properties, and what we need to do to enable it is check that box right there. If we check that box and nothing else, it'll pull in our forest, our domain, and our sites. But also notice that we have a couple of other checkboxes down here. One, to automatically create site boundaries for those sites that it discovers and the subnets that they're associated with. And we can also automatically create IP address range boundaries for subnets. We're going to go ahead and choose the first one here, and we can also set this up on a schedule. Now, your sites probably aren't going to change that much, so the default schedule of 1 week will be fine. So this looks good. We'll hit OK, and you'll get a message here. Do you want to run this as soon as possible? You can hit yes, and it'll take a little bit, but in the background, it's pulling that information in to the site database. And I'll show you a tool a little later on in this course called the Trace tool, which will allow us to view the log files in real time and monitor those background processes in action. So I gave that just a minute to complete, and now if we head down here to Active Directory Forest, we should see our forest has made it here into the site database. Down here near the bottom, we can hit Domains to see our domain, and we can also see the result of that discovery status. It did indeed succeed. Another thing Forest Discovery did for us, since we checked that box, is add in all those sites as boundaries. So I actually removed the ones that we manually created in a previous nugget and let Forest Discovery take care of it for us. And I also added our boundary group here, BGNUG, and added that HQ boundary into that group, as that's the 192.168.1/24 network and the only one that we have here in our lab environment. So this all looks good. Let's head back into our discovery methods. And I should mention that you can run these manually at any time. You can select whichever discovery method and hit that button on the toolbar, or give any of them a right click to run them as well. Now we're going to skip group discovery just for a minute. We'll be back to it soon. And let's work with system discovery to pull all of those computer objects into the site database. So we'll give that a double click. We'll check the box to enable it, and now we just need to specify the containers containing those computer objects that we want to bring in. We can do that by hitting the Splat button and then hitting the Browse button to browse Active Directory. Here we're going to expand the production OU, and let's start with servers. We'll bring that in. You've got some options down here to recursively search child containers. We don't have to worry about that because everything's in the top level, and you can also discover objects within groups, and then you'll need to specify an account that has read permission to that OU. So we look good here, we'll hit OK, and now let's do it again for those workstations. So we'll hit Browse here, we'll expand Production, we'll hit Workstations, hit OK, we'll leave the defaults from here on, hit OK, that'll add that in, and let's also add our domain controller in here. So we'll hit that one more time, hit Browse, and choose the domain controller's OU, hit OK, and that's it. We also have some other tabs to play with here. If we head to polling schedule, we can control how often this discovery method runs. By default, it's once a week. So you can modify this according to your environment and how often computer objects are added into Active Directory. And then we can also control delta discovery, which will only pull in the differences, new or modified computer objects since the last time this discovery method was ran. The next tab allows us to control which Active Directory attributes we want to pull in from those computer objects and store here in SCCM. At the top is your default list. At the bottom are all the available attributes. So if you have attributes that you want to store in SCCM for reporting and querying purposes, this is where you would add those in. Be careful adding too much in here because you can bloat your site database. We're good sticking with the defaults here for our lab environment for now. Let's head over to our final tab here, which is the Options tab. Just gives us a couple of options for excluding old or stale computer objects in Active Directory. If you check the first box, it will only discover computers that have logged in to the domain in the last 90 days. And we can also check the second one here to only pull in computers that have had their computer account password updated in the last 90 days. Be careful with this one because you could certainly have active machines that are idle or underutilized, or traveling folks with laptops that haven't been on the domain in a while. So your best bet is to just keep Active Directory clean and up to date. Then you won't have to worry about these options at all, and we're going to uncheck them and hit OK to finish. And we'll also run this right now. Now again, I gave that just a few minutes to run in the background and finish up. If you want to view those devices, we can head up to Assets and Compliance and up to Devices, and what we should see is all of those machines got pulled into SCCM. You can give any of these a double click. Let's take Client 1NUG for example, and we should see all of those attributes that we specified will be filled up with data. Very cool. Now let's head back to Administration, and let's head down to Active Directory User Discovery and open this up to pull in all of those user accounts into the site database. So again here, similar process. We'll enable it. We'll hit the Splat button here. We'll browse and specify the OUs that we want to pull in. So we'll expand Production, expand Star Wars, and hit that user's OU, and hit OK. We'll hit OK here. And then once again, we have similar options. We have our polling schedule, so we can configure a schedule, leave enable delta discovery check, and then we can also specify any additional attributes that we want to pull in from Active Directory for those user objects. Once again, we're good here with the default, so we can hit OK and choose to run it now. I also gave that a couple of minutes to run, and if we head back to Assets and Compliance, we can now head up to Users, and we'll see all of those users made it into the site database. One more to go here, and that would be Active Directory Groups. So let's head back to Administration, and this time up to Group Discovery. Here we're going to enable it, and now we're going to hit the Add button down here. We could add in specific groups, or we can browse Active Directory by choosing location. We'll give it a name here. I'll just call this SW Groups, and then we can hit Browse. We'll head down again to Production, Star Wars, and Groups. We'll hit OK. We'll stick with the defaults here, hit OK, and then once again, same deal. We have our polling schedule, and then we have some additional options here as well, similar options here, but we can also discover the membership of distribution groups. Keep in mind that Group Discovery by default will only pull in security groups. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and hit OK. We'll choose to run this, and I'll just give it a second here to fill in. All right, with that done, we can head back to Assets and Compliance, and you will find groups underneath Users as well. Notice the icon there, so you can differentiate between the two. You can also add criteria in here for a resource type. Hit Add. We can hit this, choose User Group, and then hit the Search button, and this will only show us the groups in this view. One more thing I want to show you here, if we head back into Administration, is these other two discovery methods. Heartbeat Discovery is used by clients to keep their records in the site database fresh, which is why it's enabled by default. And Network Discovery is used to find all of those resources and objects that aren't in Active Directory. So anything basically with an IP address. So if you want to pull in printers, routers, or anything else with an IP address that isn't in Active Directory, you can use Network Discovery to add those into the site database. In the CBT Nugget, we covered how to import all of those resources that we want to manage in SCCM through Active Directory using discovery methods, and we are now fully loaded and ready to go. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.